In any event, I do believe at this point in time we have Candance Ferrette with us. Hello, Candance. Are you on the phone?
I am. Hi,
hey.
How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Doing well.
Very good, very good. And it's Friday. We can all celebrate, right?
That's great. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's see. The story you have now is the whole issue of the backlog of traffic safety complaints. This is a pretty long article, so you have a lot on it. What's the story? What's going on?
Sure. So I heard rumblings from legislators and even some residents about short staffing at the Department of Public Works in Nassau County. And one of the things that they were concerned about was the fact that there were a lot of open work orders in the traffic department. There were almost 1,300 as of April. And that's a huge backlog, and legislators have discussed it in public meetings and in full legislative sessions. And I thought to myself, like, wow, I wonder how we can report that out and what the impact might be. And one of the things that we found, or I found that legislators were most concerned about was not only public safety, of course, but what might happen if one of these intersections wasn't addressed and someone did get hurt and someone filed a personal injury lawsuit. Back in October, there's a problematic stretch of Elmont Road in Elmont where 4 Elmont High School students were struck on Halloween by a driver who jumped the curb. So, there's no way of knowing whether or not the county could have done anything to prevent it. That the jury is probably still out on that. But stuff like that really raises alarms, obviously, with parents and also with taxpayers, because it has the potential to become these really big, liability lawsuits.
Right.
We've seen the county recently pay out a few of them, including one in Fort Washington that was filed in 2014. A man lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, and the county was found to be 80% liable for that accident because they hadn't installed a left turn signal at that location. So that was a big concern, and the county is appealing that judgment, but I think it stands at about $11 million right now. So for a fiscally strapped county like Nassau, these things when they crop up, are a big deal. Yeah. So the question is whether you spend the money to adequately staff the traffic department within DPW to, address these complaints, because by law you're supposed to, or you get slapped with these lawsuits later on down the road. God forbid something happens.
Right. So, I read the article, and I'm thinking that what's really interesting is, okay, let's just say you find a traffic safety. You have a safety complaint. So when you put that in, it's kind of like a machine. It's got to go through. And then actually to get the thing resolved, we need engineers, and we need a whole bunch of stuff to happen to get that fixed. It's not like somebody goes out there and says, okay, I'll get 2 guys and we'll put in a left turn signal and we're done. Cool.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
These are really extensive studies that need to be done. A lot of them take several weeks to several months, sometimes years, depending on how big the area is, or what other sort of secondary roads need to also be looked at. If it's a place, if it's near a house of worship or a school, or if it's in a community like, say, Long Beach, where you have a seasonal crowd. There's so many different factors. And I honestly do believe that the engineers are doing the best that they can with what they have to work with.
Right.
Because they do need to spend quite a bit of time at different parts of the year examining these roads. And with the kind of staff that they have, it's really difficult to do.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, you can't just put up a sign or a traffic signal. Everything needs to be documented. These are things that are very easy to request,
Right.
but not very easy to address.
Right. Right. Now, of those 1,300 open complaints last month, are they all verified that they are actually safety issues, or are they just all of the complaints?
Those are just all of the open complaints.
Okay.
That's just something by state and federal law requires.
Right.
That a traffic engineer and that the study is signed off by a licensed engineer go out and review these.
Right.
And some of them are really small. Like some of them might be a request for a stop sign, or it might be just pavement markings, and others are huge, multi-layer, multi-year projects, and a lot of those ones were included in the capital budget and are brought to the attention of the county by legislators because it's public meetings happen or an incident happens.
Right.
And you hear from stakeholders and people in the community, particularly parents, who are really concerned. There's another point I wanted to bring up, too, that, really resonated with me. Driver behavior has really changed, right? And to say the least, right?
Yep.
And we're talking about, the oldest suburb in the nation, where the infrastructure it really is responding to density and driver behavior and different kinds of cars and development that really wasn't here when we started Nassau County, right?
Right.
So you're up against that as well.
I'm still thinking about, wait a minute, we're the oldest county in the nation?
One of the oldest suburbs in the nation, for sure. Levittown, right?
Okay.
Isn't that like the model?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, wait, are we? Because I think of places like Williamsburg, Virginia, and then just because they're in history, but I would say you're right. Yeah, you're right. Right after World War II, I guess we started building up.
I guess the bottom line is, they're sort of drinking from a fire hydrant that or fire hose, whatever that cliche is.
Yeah, right.
In terms of addressing these things. And Ken Arnold, the Commissioner of Public Works, did make a really valid point to me that I don't really know if I captured enough of it to put in the story, but, driver behavior contributes a lot. When residents see somebody driving badly, it's very easy to just go online and file a complaint and say there should be a stop sign here, or there should be a crosswalk here, or there should be a turn signal there, right? But there's a lot more that goes into it. And I think that we need to, give the county a little bit of credit for taking the time out to address the issues.
And I think that exactly what you brought up is later on in your article, it mentioned something about 700 of those complaints may be addressed fairly soon. And I was wondering how many of those were actually just bogus complaints. It's almost like they should send out just a pair of guys to go and just look at the site before anything.
Right.
Validate the complaint first before it ever goes any farther. But at this rate, it appears to me that the system that's used to fix these complaints is just too darn sluggish to be able to keep up with those numbers. They'll never catch up. If you're, go ahead.
They also, just one other point is that they also lost a lot of institutional knowledge when they cut their staff in half under the Mangano administration. So whereas they used to have people on staff with 30 plus years of experience who knew every single road in the county like the back of his or her hand, they don't have that anymore. And so there's something to be said for that kind of institutional knowledge where you've seen a complaint 1 or 2 or 3 times, and yes, you do have to go out there, but you do remember what was done at that location 5, 10, 20 years ago.
And what did or didn't work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now you're sort of starting with new people, younger people who are trained very well to do a lot of digital, to work a lot of digital tools, but might not have that background experience, that on-the-ground experience.
Yep, that hands-on experience is invaluable. That's, the county is kind of like between a rock and a hard place, because the complaints are going to keep flowing in, and the work is going to dribble out as far as addressing them. If what they have to do for each one takes months or even years in some cases. I mean, some roads, somebody comes and sees a traffic problem, and the answer is to add 2 lanes to both sides of the highway.
Right.
Okay, what do you do with that? There's a complaint that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yep.
Yeah, wow. So, are you going to follow this, or you're going to continue to write about?
I mean, to the extent that the county allows me access, yes.
Yeah, right. And
I think I will check back in a couple months or so.
Yeah, right. But because it may be a slow moving story.
Yeah, right.
It's it is a traffic story, so slow moving. It would be right on target.
Yep.
But okay. It's. And with the population, I don't know. Is the population going up or is it going down? I'm not sure.
Well, we know that there are buildings where there weren't buildings before, right? Mm-hmm. We know that there are, like, for example, legislator Kavan Abrahams, he brought up a really good point. There's a stretch of roadway on Hempstead Avenue that he's been Franklin Avenue in Hempstead,
right,
that he's been trying to get attention for a while, mainly because there is a new charter school there that houses elementary, middle school, and high school students, mm-hmm. and they, there wasn't that school there before. It's a very walking school community. Mm-hmm. So, at 3:00 or whenever the last bell rings, you have hundreds of kids where you didn't have them before, mm-hmm. right? And nothing has ever really, I don't know that there's anything major that has happened to that road, right. In terms of maybe extending the sidewalk or,
right.
Turn signals. I mean, they have, speed indicators, those digital speed indicators,
right.
But beyond that, you really need a full-scale study of that area and some of the secondary roads there to be able to do something major to address the infrastructure issue.
Yeah. Well,
and so,
yeah.
You hate to have, incidents prompt these things and make them a priority, because now you're talking about safety and now you're talking about human life, right. potentially, or human injury.
But you're right. That's pretty much the MO at this time. We need a good accident, or we need something to happen, so everybody goes, oh, yes, we should do something. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's not an ideal.
No, but that just seems to be us.
Yeah.
That just seems to be us. It won't happen to me, or it won't happen today. But when it does, we'll take care of it. Okay.
Yeah.
In the counties, you have in here too, in the county's capital budget, it allocates more than $3 million for traffic studies.
Right.
Now, does that money get used for the complaints, or is that a separate thing where they study traffic flow and that kind of thing?
That's a good question. And a lot of the complaints, they I think a lot of them are related too. So, that it is a huge number. Yeah.
Right.
But let's make sure that we put it into context, right?
Yeah.
That one study could potentially address
right.
a dozen of those complaints all at once, right?
Right.
And so that's the sort of that's the thing that gets lost with that big number.
Yeah. Well, there's so many opportunities here to waste money, too. I could go to an intersection and fix a problem and then find out that one of the other complaints also has an issue with the same intersection. I could have fixed that altogether, and maybe I didn't. There's a lot of organization that needs to happen here for all of the right ingredients to work to the same end.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And look, one of the places where they're spending a lot of money, like I mentioned, is Elmont Road.
Right.
With the Belmont development, we've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. That's going to add a significant number of cars onto the roads. a lot of them are going to go through that area, I think.
And there's a road in particular that can't take 2 new lanes on each side.
Right. Yeah.
There's just no way that's going to happen there. Right.
So these are things, that if you haven't studied that area in 20 years, I mean, I think it's time to get on that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they are.
Yeah, right. No, very true. Very, very true. Oh, well. All right. Anyway, I don't think we're going to fix it today, but
no.
But I do thank you.
That's wishful thinking. And meanwhile, we're sitting in traffic for much longer.
Oh,
and that's another thing, that is interesting to note that I don't think made it into the story is that where one resident might want a stop sign, another resident does not.
Right. So you have 2 complaints.
Because it slows down traffic. Right. So, and hence the reason why you have to do a really comprehensive study.
Yeah.
And, to find out scientifically, whether or not there needs to be a stop sign at that location or whether or not there needs to be a turn signal at that location. And that stuff takes time. And it takes, it takes a dedicated staff or at least vendors or outside companies who you could pay at a reasonable rate.
Yeah, right. To at least address part of the issue. They may not be the engineers that come up with the final answers and institute the fixing, but they could be the ones to identify things and that may streamline the process. If we had 5 teams of people out there doing that instead of 2 guys,
right?
But again, at this point,
it's all about money, though.
Right. And we're all just really talking about numbers at this point. How many complaints and but yeah. Well, Candance, I thank you very much for giving us a call.
Thank you.
Always have a good time talking to you, and
you too.
I hope you have a good weekend.